everyone! If you're thinking about trying to pursue a career in corporate sustainability in-house or through consulting, then this video is for you. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Tyanna Bui and I previously worked in consulting, but now I'm in-house. So I feel like I can give you some perspective on what my experiences were, some of the pros and cons, and just explaining a little bit to help you decide which career path you might want to take. So in this video, we'll walk through what they both are, the type of work that you can be doing, some of the skills and experiences to start this career path, maybe some of the challenges that you might face while in these roles, what the income can look like, and my own opinion on which one is better. Again, this will be based off my experiences, and so I'm sure a lot of you guys who are already in these roles might have a different perspective, but really do hope that it can help frame what you want for the future. So let's first off talk about what they both are. If you are doing corporate sustainability consulting, you're pretty much helping your clients or these companies with a specific task. These tasks will be really dependent on whatever is going on in the industry and really just the needs of the client. And some, off the top of my head, the type of work that you can do is doing some research tasks, doing life cycle assessments, helping a company build their carbon emissions inventory, doing water, waste, climate, risk assessment, and more. On the other hand, working in-house, what you'll be doing is helping that company reach its sustainability goals and setting those goals. The type of work that you can do really differs on where you sit in the organization. It's typical that there's more of a corporate level team. That team will gather all the data across the whole company and, try to figure out what types of strategies and goals that company might want to take. If you do sit on the business level segment, then a lot of the work that you'll be doing will be focused and tailored to the business segment that you sit on. So for example, I do sit under the consumer products, games, and publishing team at my company, and so a lot of the sustainability work I do is solely focused on those types of projects. I don't really work on since my organization also has theme parks, I don't really work on any projects related to that because that's not the segment level team I sit on. Really everything is focused on like improving materials in our products and so forth. Some of the specifics that I find more in-house is that what you'll be doing besides doing these projects is trying to pitch all these ideas and trying to get the organization to commit to the project that you're wanting to do. So what kind of work environment will you be in? And this is a really important question when you're trying to understand the forecast of where you want your career trajectory to be in. When I was doing a lot of informational interviews, this is probably the main question that they told me to answer within myself to figure out where I wanted to be. And so really in consulting, I would say from my experience that the work environment was definitely more remote, right? The company can be anywhere around the nation, but they hired people from all over the world, and that was because their clients, they weren't just in the United States, on the East Coast, on the West Coast. They were everywhere, and they also would have global teams, so you'll be working with people from across the world as well. I would say the work environment in consulting is very busy. You'll have a lot of projects piled on you, and they're all gonna have some concrete deadlines, right? Because when you're doing a project for a client, you have this whole project planned out right at the beginning of the project, and so you'll have all these deadlines to fulfill, and especially if your consulting firm specializes in specific tasks such as reporting or doing carbon emissions, it will be very common to want to report that stuff and have that finalized by the end of the financial year or by the beginning of the next financial year. And so a lot of those deadlines pile up around the same time if you're doing that for a lot of companies. Because there is a lot of projects to do all at once, there are times where I was working overtime a lot, but then there are other times after the season was done where it was a lot more chill, and so there was a continuous fluctuation of busy work and also a season of having it be a little more relaxed. When I was in consulting, I did get a lot of hand-holding opportunities, which was really great because it was one of my first roles coming out of school. And so I would say it really depends on how the culture is, but I would think even when talking to some of my other friends who are in consulting that the leadership there is a lot more open and having that open door policy, wanting to hear your ideas coming in. On the other hand, for corporations, I wouldn't say that there's so many remote roles open these days, especially since after the pandemic, all these big companies have started requiring all of their workers to come more in office. And so it would be very common for these in-house roles to at least be hybrid, for you to have more face time with people across the organization. And at first, it may seem like a turnoff, but if you think about working in-house and how a lot of these environmental initiatives really need to be passed through leadership, and also you'll need the help of the business segment teams and the working level teams to help launch these projects, it does make sense to be in office and have more face time with these people, because the stronger relationships that you can build across the organization, that's pretty much going to be your currency trying to get all these projects launched. Busy level wise, I would say it is busy, but I would think, at least from my experience, it's not as busy as while I was in consulting. Though we would have these specific deadlines to complete these projects, because we're working on it with consultants, there can be a delay time, and that may or may not be on our end. Also, when we are working cross-functionally, it's not that we need just my team's feedback, we need all these other teams' feedback in order to get things done, and things do delay because of that. I would say if you do sit more at that corporate level in-house, you will have some of those similar deadlines as consultants, like end of financial year reporting, or trying to get verification every year for your carbon inventory. But at least you're doing it for one company versus a lot. What I've come to realize being more in-house, and I've talked to some of my friends about this who are also in-house, it's definitely more of a learn on your own type of environment. And this is primarily because when you have your bosses who are senior managers, directors, or higher, they're so damn busy, okay? They're not gonna have time to explain every single little detail to you. You're gonna have a set amount of time each week to get that FaceTime with them, to ask them questions, and it's gonna be really up to you to figure out what you should prioritize in those conversations and learnings from them. So what types of skills and experiences do you need to succeed? I'm gonna say you at least want a baseline of understanding and having an educational background on environmental science somewhere, or I know there's environmental studies or sustainability majors out there, getting your bachelor's in that, because what you really wanna have is a strong foundation of the science knowledge and that research knowledge, because all the environmental issues haven't been solved out there, so they're really gonna want people with this type of background in order to try to solve this. Additionally, across the board for consulting or in-house, they're also going to want someone who can look at data and not be scared about it. You don't have to be the best analyst around, but just understanding how to tell a story with what's presented, or understanding how to read a big spreadsheet is going to be pretty important, because a lot of the environmental impacts, in order to analyze that, you get all these big data spreadsheets, and so being able to do that is going to be pretty important moving forward. And also having strong interpersonal skills, because you're not just solely working with your team, right? You're working cross-functionally. With consulting, you're going to be working with clients from all different companies, all different personalities, and then when you are in-house, you're going to be working across the teams who may or may not have the same environmental knowledge as you do, so being able to communicate that very well to them is going to be super important across the board. If you do want to learn more skills, I do have this previous video that I'll pop somewhere here and you can go check that out. But diving more into the specific requirements for each of them, it's pretty much going to be similar, but it depends on the type of role. And an example I can show you is that you can have an environmental reporting role for consulting, but then you can also have that for more of an in-house position. Now they're gonna probably have the same requirements, like trying to know what the reporting standards out there. Have you done it before? Do you know how to write well? Do you know how to talk to other teams to gather this data? Do you know how to manage that data? Like all of those specific requirements are gonna pretty much be the same, but what's gonna be different is that for the consulting role, they might have some additional requirements, like understanding how to write proposals and walking that through, having a stronger project management experience, and just overall being able to have client experience. Like, are you able to talk to clients and not freeze during these calls, right? And then on the in-house side, they might require to have that consulting relationship experience, because a lot of the times corporations and big companies, they do hire consultants to do all the work that they can't do at the moment or don't have the bandwidth to do. So you would need to be able to guide the consultant in understanding, having them understand what you need and want, and if they're not doing what you want, being able to communicate how you can improve to get that deliverable that you need. So what challenges can you expect to come across when doing consulting versus in-house? For the consulting roles, what I feel may be a challenge is having really strong time management. Because you're working on so many things at once, you're really gonna want to be able to prioritize your time and when the deadline is for each of the projects, how much time it's actually gonna take to complete all of them, so you're not rushing towards the end and just do everything and trying to take so much overtime after work to finish the projects because you didn't, time manage well enough at the beginning. Another thing that I experienced is having the pressure to be super excellent, and that's because you are doing work for a client, so making sure all the work that you're doing for them is crystal perfect, like there's no mistakes that they can find. And that's something that you want to keep in mind when you are doing that work, right? You're going to be giving it off to a company, and that company is going to be able to look at your work, and from that work they're going to be able to judge your consulting firm. And so you obviously want to be able to provide the best top-notch deliverable that you can. And even when presenting and breaking everything down to the client, there is that pressure to deliver it really well. Like, you never want to be that person in a consulting firm that can't explain the work that was just done for them. So making sure that you have those skill sets. But what's really great with consulting is that they can, if you haven't done that before, they can have training sessions, so you'll be more experienced in trying to break down all this type of information to clients. On the other hand, for more of that in-house role, some challenges that you might face is really doing that cross-collaboration work with other teams. When a company sets an environmental goal, even though the sustainability teams are making these goals and trying to strategize on it, it's not necessarily the sustainability team that has to make all these changes, right? It's going to be all these other teams that need to make changes. And so you're really going to have to buy them in to the projects that you're trying to push through the company. It's most likely going to be the case that these other teams don't have a sustainability function, and so they have all these other list of things that they have to do more from their leadership. And so it is that battle of, or not battle, it is that challenge to go and get all these other teams' buy-ins and really trying to find those environmental champions within the organization to help push this. Another thing too, when you are presenting to all these teams, something that I've come to realize that I didn't realize before coming in-house is how important brand risk is. And so the legal team is always going to be one of your best friends when trying to push these projects out there and also trying to communicate on these projects that you're doing. But there's always that big question of like, is this going to be a brand risk to the organization if we do it like this, or should we do it like this? Is there going to be less risk? There should basically be zero brand risk to everything that you're doing, but that's never the case, especially in the world that we're in, since environmental solutions aren't straightforward. It's really different depending on the industry that you're in. And so when you are making your case for your projects or the programs that you're launching or the things that you want to do, really trying to understand thoroughly the rationales to show that it isn't a brand risk and why it will be a brand benefit to doing XYZ. So how much money will you be making in consulting versus in-house? I wish I had actual figures for you, but I don't really have like a license to gather all this data. But from personal experience, I do make a lot more being in-house than in consulting. I've also talked to other people where they'd be making over 6 figures. I don't mean 6 figures. They're making over $100,000, but because of how many hours they're dedicating to the role and working overtime, it could be that the hourly rate that you're making is less than what you get in-house. So I'd see that a common trend is that you will make less in consulting and more in in-house. The thing about working in-house too is that after you reach this certain threshold of the level that you're at the job, you can also get bonuses, and you can also get stock options for the company. Sometimes it's the case that once you first join the company, you get X amount of stocks, and that's just extra money to you, because a lot of the time people just sell the company stocks and they get money from that. So it would be like baseline salary plus annual bonus plus stock options. There can be a case where you do make more in consulting versus in-house, and the only situation I can really see that in is if you are working overtime to make more money, because when you do work overtime, you make I think it's 150% more than what you make in your regular hourly rate. So out of consulting and being in-house, which one is actually better? This answer is really just going to be based on what you want to prioritize in your career. And a lot of people do work in consulting because even though they might make a little less money, it's most likely the case that the projects that you're going to be working on is pretty diverse. You can be working with a lot of different types of industries. You can become more specialized in certain skill sets. Like for example, if you are doing reporting, but for a lot of different companies, that's what you're going to be able to specialize in, but learn a lot from all these different industries and companies you're working with. If you are someone who wants to prioritize maybe having something that's a little more stable in terms of the hours that you're working, maybe in-house is better for you. You won't have so much exposure to all the different projects out there that can happen in this space because you're at one company, but that's just something to toggle. If you do value working a remote life, then I'd say that you'd have a better chance at doing this while in a consulting gig. So maybe that's something that you prioritize instead. So really both of these types of career paths offer different benefits, pros and cons, but these pros and cons are really just going to be based on what you value. And the best part is that even if you choose to do one now, you can always switch later. Like at first I was doing consulting, and then later on I'm in-house, and I'm glad I did that, because now if I started in-house, I'll never have that thought in my head, like what if I did consulting? And so hope you guys find this video helpful today to understand the differences between consulting and being in-house a little bit. I have been getting so much love from you guys from Instagram DMs, and I do appreciate all the questions, but if you do want more personalized career consulting, I do have a service where you can go and set an appointment with me so we can chat through it more. But yeah, appreciate everything, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day and weekend or month, whatever time that you're watching this is. But until next time.